Hogstye.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hogstye. We have probably one of the bigger shows that we've seen in the last year. To start with, let's do the big announcement for the show, and that is we have somebody with us. He's been a guest before, Rob Henson. Rob is going to be joining us on most every show, it sounds like. He's got to work out some stuff with his real-life schedule now. Rob, we want to welcome you to the whole podcast here, and welcome to the family.
No, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation and the platform. You guys have been doing a great job for a long time, and it's going to be a great experience, I can tell.
Well, you know, it's funny because you used to do a show with a former guy who was on this show, Robbie Duncan, and you guys did a great show for about a year and a half or so?
Yeah.
And then Robbie had his kid, and you had to get your life going, and that's
right.
What happens, right?
Exactly.
Life gets in the way of fun, and then you can get back to fun someday.
Unless you're the sports junkies, you can't make a career of this.
Right.
Yeah. They had the lucky of being older, so they got in before the internet, and you could get paid.
I'm still convinced that we could do a better job than sports junkies. I'm still convinced of that.
Yeah. I think we could do a better job than a lot of the shows that are out there, but that's just arrogance.
Rob, the reason why we started this show, which at the time we didn't want to say, but was the truth, but now we're not afraid to say it, is that show that Jason Reed and what was the guy's name, Alex? Dukes?
The comedian. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, last name. We thought that they were so bad on the radio that we could do a better show with no training, no experience, no anything. That was the whole original premise of behind the show, was to spite Jason Reed.
Well, he's a great writer.
Yeah.
Just didn't he always sounded half asleep, and they gave him a radio show.
Well, that Dukes guy blocked us on social media.
Yeah, Chad Dukes, he's blocked us.
Dukes?
Yeah,
not Chad Dukes. The guy who was Jason Reed's partner in that show.
Oh, it's co-host. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't. He was a heavy set dude. Last name, I swear his last name was Dukes.
He was a comedian. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
He got wind of our nonsense about this, our joke about this Reed and Dukes thing, and blocked us.
I don't think it was Dukes, because that's another guy.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That's a heavy-set white dude. This was a heavy-set African-American dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, Rob, welcome to the show. You're just shaking your head already. Regrets already.
It's like, why am I doing this?
I know Jason Reed personally, but I don't know the other guy.
Maybe I'm wrong about Dukes, the name. I can't remember, but he was a comedian. Yeah,
he's a local stand-up comic who did a lot of sports stuff. I don't remember his name either. And I actually like Jason in terms of, his writing. I always have. I
tried to get him on the show a couple times, and it never worked out. But
I wonder why he didn't want to come on.
Right.
I think this is pretty obvious. There's an answer here.
Yeah.
True.
Well, Rob, again, welcome to the show. You are joining probably what's going to be one of the more interesting shows we have, because we have some big topics to talk about. Let's start with the sad news first. Right after we recorded our podcast last week, there was word that Hall of Famer in my eyes, Joe Bugel, the Redskins' great O-line coach from the 80s and from Joe Gibbs' second stint as well, passed away. He was 80 years old. So, not like it's an unexpected thing when an 80-year-old man dies, but just a real shame, because I think he meant a lot to Redskins culture, the DC community as a whole, and even to the NFL, because what he did to the offensive line position back in the day, huge impact across the league. But wanted to get that out there, get people's thoughts on him. We don't really think about position coaches a lot, but he's kind of an exception here in DC.
I'd like to start with Rob. Yeah, you played. You were you played with him for a year, right? Or he was a coach, wasn't he? When you're for your rookie year, right?
Yeah, he was. Well, I don't think it wasn't my rookie year, but HB Blades and guys like that used to just to talk about him, about his demeanor, how he conducted his practices, and honestly, when you think about Joe, you think about he brought light to a position that isn't glorified, or that wasn't glorified at the time. Nobody cared about the guys up front, and when you think about Joe, he made those guys relevant. He made those guys a bigger part of the NFL of the team makeup, and made those positions more important. You need a better athlete. You need a certain type of mindset, and just hearing about how he conducted himself in those practices, and how he got his guys ready to play, in my eyes, makes him one of the best. And just, obviously hearing stories about the offensive line that they created, and, those hogs up front. Everybody says that, but they don't know where the term comes from. And he should get all the recognition and all the praise for what he accomplished while here in Washington. I think locally he's going to be a legend forever.
Well, yeah. There's not a lot of position group coaches that really make the impact that Joe Bugel had, in my opinion. Bugel, he created the Hogs. Like you said, who knows where the name came from, but the Hogs were a fundamental shift in offensive line philosophy to me. We've railed for years about Joe Jacoby belongs in the Hall of Fame on this show, obviously, and
time after time.
Yeah, we had Joe on the show, and he talked about Bugel, but I have to give him credit for that. Joe Jacoby was a fundamental shift in the philosophy behind left tackle. He was big. He was a mauler. He did a lot of things differently than never been done before. And Bugel is the guy who created that
the modern left tackle. Yeah. Without him, you don't have Jacoby. You don't have guys that you played with like Chris and Trent Williams. I mean, their whole. And in my mind, you could put all three of those guys as Hall of Fame candidates. If not, they should all be shoo-ins. But I
can't really think of a position group coach that's in the Hall of Fame alone. But if anybody deserved it,
they don't put them in. Yeah.
It would be Bugel if anybody deserved it, in my view. Real shame he's dead. He's revered in D.C., obviously. I don't know how your average NFL fan views him, if at all. But
they probably don't, because
probably not, but they should.
They should. I was listening to his retirement speech when he announced his retirement, which I think was that the year. That was the year before you joined the team that he left, right, Rob?
Well, Gibbs, and then if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he wasn't on Shanahan's staff.
No. He left with Gibbs.
No, he left the year before I did.
Yeah. So, but his retirement speech, he talked about just one of his philosophies that I think probably contributed to his success was being willing to tell guys how you really cared about them, being willing to tell guys you loved them, that they're, having your players back, and that mindset of, we always like to hear about players coach versus kind of like the hard ass coaches. It as much of a hard ass as he kind of looked like on the outside, it sounds like he really was more of a players guy in the end. Because that's what he did. He would push you to your most, but he did it out of love. And, you don't see that enough.
From listening to guys talk, it sounded like, guys in the locker room talk, it sounded like he was really instrumental in making offensive linemen utility plays. Like, you have to be able to play almost every position. And if we're being honest, you kind of got to give him credit for the swing tackle term. Because, Chris used to talk about how guys had to play, had to know every position. Even if you didn't play that position, you had to know every position down the line. And he would, like I said, he conduct his practices that way. He just put you in uncomfortable situations so you'd be ready for anything.
Well, in fact, at the end of Jacoby's career, Jim Lachey was there, and they flipped Jacoby to right tackle, and nobody missed a beat. The bottom line for me with Joe Bugel is that the Redskins would not have 3 Super Bowls without Joe Bugel.
No.
He made a fundamental difference in the direction of this franchise. Those are the golden years. Really, frankly, one of 2 golden periods the Redskins have ever had in their history, and it wouldn't have happened without Joe Bugel. I'm sad he's gone. He had a great life, and he deserves all the credit, all due credit and respect from me.
Yeah, it belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Does he go in the Ring of Honor?
What's that?
Does he go in the Ring of Honor?
He should.
He should already be there, frankly.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
he retired in 2009, right? Or he stopped coaching like 09, 2010, right?
09, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's been long enough. I don't know I don't know why he's not in the Ring of Fame.
Because
Ring of
position
Honor.
coaches don't get enough credit.
There you go.
And
Yep.
I mean, Rob, I'm sure you've had. You've played what? How many different coaches? Have you ever counted?
No, I hadn't counted.
A
But
lot, I'm sure.
let me ask you, as a player, who really makes a bigger impact on you? Is it the head coach or is it your position
You
guy?
spend way more time with your position coach than the
Mhm.
head coach. I saw my head coach at practice and a couple of team meetings. That was it. And you spend maybe 5-6 hours with your position coach every day. And
Right.
that's just part of the program, like the itinerary. And you don't take into account guys who stay after practice or come in early
Mhm.
or do all those things to be successful. So
Stuff outside of the office, even I imagine. I don't.
yeah, outside
Not
of
that I
office.
think position coaches are going over your house to hang out, but I.
Some guys are like that with their position coaches.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We hear
I mean,
stories about that time to time with some players, yeah. But I think position coaches really don't get that respect that they deserve. Where they do belong in some sort of Hall of Fame or at least consideration for it. You'd think.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, the only other one I can think of that made this kind of impact was the name escaped me. The defensive line coach up in Pittsburgh that was there for 30 years, 20 years. Anybody remember his name?
Was it
I'll look
Dick LeBeau or
him. Yeah,
Dick
no,
LeBeau.
that's it. Dick LeBeau.
He was the D coordinator. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was also their line coach for years, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I meant to say I meant to say
Yeah.
D coordinator. He's about the only one I can think of that really made the impact that a guy like Joe Bugel made would be Dick
Sure.
LeBeau. Other than that, I mean, they're kind of unheralded. Um, I don't know. It's a real shame. I wish the Hall of Fame would give this Redskins team in general more credit, than they do.
That era.
Yeah.
I think position coaches get more credit when they go on to be
Head coaches.
Head coaches.
Yeah.
And when you think about them, and I was just racking my brain, like what position coach, like, because not what good position coach has not been a head coach somewhere. You know what I mean? The Giants gave the special teams coordinator a head coaching job. So that's the only time that we think of, oh, he must be a great position coach or a good special teams coordinator or a good coordinator. We don't, you don't think of the average guy. So.
But I think it's a very different skill set too, and more often than not, these guys fail as head coaches because your talent might be in motivating a handful of players or teaching tactician type stuff,
I would agree
and
with
that doesn't translate to head coach.
Zorn
X's and O's might,
Zorn
but
was definitely a quarterback guy. He was not
right. I forgot. We might have to
You're
ask you
giving
some
me
stories about
nightmares.
him off the air sometime.
Did you practice a swinging gate thing, in practice?
Those are some dark
Actually
days
did.
that you had to go through.
We actually did practice it. And I know Zorn catches all the crap for it, and everybody loves Danny Smith, but Danny told him to run it again, pretty much.
Oh, really?
I was just about to say, like, who told him after the timeout to say this is a good enough. We're gonna do it again.
I was standing right there, and I will never forget it. Zorn walks over to Danny after they called the timeout. He said,
Wait, were you out there for that play?
"Yeah, no, I wasn't out there, but I was
okay.
standing next to him on the sideline."
Gotcha.
And he walks over to Danny, puts his hand over his mouth. He says, "What do you think? Should we do it again? What do you think? Should we just kick the field goal? Do it again."
One of my favorite.
Danny chewing his bubble gum out of like crazy. Like, fuck it, coach, run it again.
There's one picture that's burned in my brain from that era of Danny Smith, like literally yelling at Jim Zorn, face turning red, like redder than his shirt. Like just going absolutely ballistic at Zorn on the sidelines. When I'm assuming it was during a bad loss. Just I can't remember what date, but that one moment.
What on earth is? Come on, I mean, seriously, you run a play like that once.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, you kick the field. I mean, my God, even I, who am not a professional football player, know not to do that again. That's crazy. Can we move on? I don't.
Yeah, let's move on. All right. I don't know if you're going to like what we're moving on to because the next topic is.
It's more of a nightmare, I know.
More of a nightmare because it's kind of. I mean, we don't like to bring it up on this show, but I think we have to.
Didn't we do a whole show on this once?
We did years ago. We did a show years ago
ago.
about the name change debate, and it looks like this is kind of reaching to a head again. We have word that FedEx sent in a request that the Redskins change their name. Pepsi did this. Nike is taking all the Redskins gear off their website.
Yeah.
And the team is having an internal meeting to discuss changing the name.
Well,
yeah.
Well, that's the
whatever
whole trick,
that
isn't it? Okay,
right.
So for those of you who've lived under a rock for the past few days, the first thing that happened was a group of investment firms wrote a letter to Nike, Pepsi, and FedEx asking them to sever their business relationship with the Redskins if their name didn't change. None of that didn't bother me at all. I looked into some of those firms, and they were all a bunch of social activists and stuff. It was the same group of people that have been fighting the name thing forever, basically an expanded list. So that didn't bother me. But the FedEx thing is important because FedEx obviously is not only the name sponsor of the stadium. For those of you who don't know, their CEO is a minority owner of the team. And so that is important. So now you've got the company run by, and one of the owners of the team is now asking the principal owner to change the name. That is important.
Right.
And then Nike never really made a statement. They just pulled the Redskins gear off of the website.
No, they did make a statement saying they're not putting it back up until the name changes. Yeah.
So that's the status. So then the press release put out by the Redskins said, we're going to undergo a review of the name, but didn't define what a review was exactly.
Right.
My initial reaction to that is this is Dan Snyder's idea of waiting out the controversy, seeing how the world feels in a few months, and then he'll make a decision. That's kind of the way I viewed it. I could be wrong, but that's how I saw it was, hey, this is a stall tactic.
I mean, I agree with you that it's a stall tactic. My thinking is more along the lines of they know that from what other reports are coming out that other owners are really pressuring Snyder to change the name now. We've seen that from Schefter. There's a lot of reports that they're basically being told you have to do this now internally within the NFL. I think it is a stall tactic, mostly because I don't think you can do what some people claim, which is change the name and flip everything in a matter of weeks.
Well, okay, let me explain.
It takes about a year to make new uniforms and all that stuff.
Well, it's not just that. That's not really the issue. The issue really is, let me explain it from an intellectual property standpoint. I'm not an IP lawyer, but I know sort of the basics. I can pretend. You have to file an IP. You have to file your IP marks.
Right.
And then there's a waiting period, and even then it takes a long time for that to get approved. You can't nobody cares in the patent and trademark office about the Redskins. They're not going to speed this process up. So I don't know if they can, they definitely cannot get it done before the season. And so what you would have is a patent pending thing, trademark pending, and that's dangerous. So I don't think, unless they just want to risk it, which they'd be foolish to, I don't think they can get this done before the season starts for the IP stuff alone. And then, like you said, Alex, you throw in the redesign, the manufacturing uniforms and gear and stuff takes Nike a time to ramp up. So it's realistically probably not possible.
From what, and I'm a uniform nerd. Rob, you don't know this. I'm a huge, when it comes to uniform designs and all like the weird stuff behind it, I'm a big nerd about that stuff. It used to take Nike 2 years. I think they're down to about 1 year to really redesign a team and come up with a new logo. And all that stuff takes, man hours and it's work. Like, as someone who does graphic design, it's work to come up with a logo. I designed our logo. It took me 3 weeks.
Well, the other thing about it is we're going to get into our opinions about the name here in a minute, but I think no matter how you feel about whether the name should be changed, I think the team would be doing these fans who've been around for decades a disservice by not having a goodbye Redskins kind of season, too, is the other thing. I think you can't just dump this name that has been around since 1937, said, screw y'all, it's over. I think that would really be doing the fans a disservice. And more importantly, it would really tick off half of the market. or whatever the percentage is that is strongly in favor of the name Redskins, I'm one of them, would really tick people off if you just dumped it without a second thought and it's over with. They really kind of need to have a farewell tour, so to speak, of it in order to kind of maintain the sanity of the fan base, I think.
I actually agree with that, even as somebody who has always accepted that this was going to happen at some point. Like, in my mind, it's just the way, if you study American history, you knew they were going to lose eventually. You don't, if you don't take the side of equality in a bet on American history, you're going to lose. And you know, we've seen that on hardcore things like civil rights, women's rights. This is not to that level. I'm not going to ever compare it to that. But it's just, anyone who studies history knows, man, you don't win by excluding people.
It's just the right thing to do, honestly.
Well, to me, my problem with the whole thing is there are certain racial slurs that clearly are awful. The N-word is awful, right? You know, there's words for Asians and there's words for Jewish people. All those are awful, and they're used still today in negative context. I can honestly say, in all due sincerity, I have never heard the word Redskins ever uttered or written in anything current, except in conjunction with the name. I'm not even sure it's a real slur anymore. To me, the only uses of the word Redskins is with the team.
Well, with all due respect, we don't know what's a slur. I'm not Indian, so I don't have many Indian friends. I think I got one, but he doesn't find it racist. But at the same time, there are others who may offend. You know what I mean? So my thing is, I don't want to exclude people. How people feel. I think nowadays, these times, people rely too much on feelings. But in this case, I can't, that's like the team being called some racial epithet that hurts black people or was offensive to some black people. Who am I to argue with, you know, if somebody finds that racist or not?
Right. Well, okay, so...
Well, we've seen so many teams come out and change their name and it not affect them. Like you, I did think this was coming. I understand, on your point, I do understand the history of the Redskins organization.
Well, I mean, you have a unique tie to it.
There's got to be a middle ground for both. I mean, call them Braves, pick up the spear helmets again, like, just something. Right. It got to be something.
Well, I was looking. I mean, Steve, you bring up a point that you've never really heard, but how? And you know, how often have you really ever heard a white person use the N-word or an ethnic slur for Jews?
A lot. I mean, first of all, I don't think you compare the term Redskins to the N-word. There's a historical basis for the N-word that goes back to slavery, and it's tied to lynchings and murder and, you know, everything else. That's a whole different thing.
Okay,
you know,
the
words for Asian people. Yeah, you just can't compare that.
Since I'm Jewish, I'll say let's use one of the ones for Jews, like kike. How often have you ever heard someone use that?
I have heard it a lot.
Really?
Yes.
I hadn't. I knew it because of having the Jewish friends, but other than them, I've never heard anybody call that.
Yeah, and
see here. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So but that's my point. It's people generally don't use slurs about anybody anymore. Like, unless you're a horrible person, you probably don't call anybody anything pejorative.
Well, yeah, I mean, most people are good people, but you know, the word, you know, the Jewish slang word you said has been in films, it's been in, you know, books, it's been in the public consciousness. The word Redskins I've never seen it used.
Films and books aren't reality, Steve.
But it's in the public. Listen, but that's not my point. My point is all those other words. You know, and there's words for Hispanics and, you know, everybody else. They've all been used in the public consciousness. You know, it's a word that people know that is a slur. I don't think that anybody even knows the word Redskins except in conjunction with the football team. That's my point.
Yeah. And nowadays that's so in the public view, that's all we know. That's fine. It's not used in a negative sense. But if you do the history on the word, It's a reason why the dictionary defines it as a racial term, even though we don't understand it, because it's not our place to tell people what Native Americans went through. I don't know any Native Americans. I mean, I may have come across them. I don't know, but I don't personally know any of them today. And I can't sit here. And one of the things that came to help me come to my conclusion on this whole thing, because I used to tell people, back in 2013, I was still young. I don't even think I was 21 yet. But I didn't understand things, and I'm sitting here trying to defend the team over against people who's way older than me, my uncles and stuff. Like, why are you a Skins fan and they got a racial slur? And I'm saying like they don't know what they're talking about or anything like that. But as you get older, you understand like this isn't your fight. Like if you don't know any Native Americans, Jamal, you like these are people that may have went through some things that you don't understand. And why are you going to sit here and defend a team name when like it's why would you want to do that? And that's my whole mindset behind the thing. Why would you want to defend a team name that's controversial? Whether you have facts that say that it's not racist or facts that you say that it is racist, why would you want to defend that? Why won't you want to change the name, get it done with, move on, and you can live your life peacefully without having to defend the team name and root for the team that's in Washington?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna live peacefully no matter what. No, first of all, but I've never been one to really. Yeah, I've really not been one to ever want to bow down to the vocal minority. Because if you look at the numbers and the stats, there is a small group of people who are offended by it. Clearly, the Washington Post poll showed that, but it's a very small group, and I don't know. I'm just not necessarily sold on the idea that we need to kowtow on a tiny, tiny group of people when the vast majority don't feel that way. That's always been my view of it.
We don't even know that.
The vast majority feel like they shouldn't wear masks, but
yeah,
that's just how it is. That's how it's got to be. So, I mean, we ain't gonna get on that stuff, but that's what it reminded me of. Is like everybody feel like we shouldn't wear masks, like it's a hoax. But my thing is, it don't affect you until it affects you. You know what I mean? So, and like Jamal said, you don't want to be. My thing was I didn't want to be. Who am I to tell somebody how they can feel about something? If you call me blanket every day of my life and I got offended by it, now I'm gonna want you to stop calling me blanket. Like, you know what I mean? And then people say, well, it's not a bad name. Like, so fucking what? It's not my name. Stop calling me blanket.
Sure.
So you get into that fine little space where people are offended by things that you don't understand, and in your mind you can't reason with it. But to them, it's a big deal. So that's why I backed down on this one. And
yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the same boat with Rob there. Like, and maybe it's, again, I know Jude's not the same kind of minority as Native American or Black, but I've been called ethnic slurs. I'm sure Rob and Jamal, you've both been called.
I grew up in Texas, so.
Yeah. I'm sure things have happened in your lives where when you've gone through something like that, you learn to empathize with other people who've gone through that pretty easily, and that's part of life.
Well, Alex, the Jewish people have been disrespected. First of all, were victims of genocide.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times. It's fine. We've
most recently by Adolf Hitler. Yeah, I mean, the Jewish people have been through the ringer, Alex. I mean, they've been more victims than maybe any other group.
But we have the benefit where we can disguise as white, and certain other ethnic groups don't. And sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
So we could talk about this all day, but to me, the more interesting issue, because we've already done this whole show, years ago. The more interesting issue is what happens from here.
Right.
What happens from here. Like I said, I don't think it's really realistically possible to get it all done before the season starts. But assuming there's going to be a name change, number one, what should the name be? Mm-hmm. What should their philosophy in selecting a name be? There's a lot of people throwing around a bunch of names and guesses and whatnot.
I've seen some terrible ones too. Yeah. I mean, somebody suggested the Arlingtons, which that's
awful. That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the worst one I've heard. So that's why and I grew up in Arlington. It's an awful name.
Let me offer you a different side to this. So with the history of the Redskins, you either grew up here or you come across the franchise in their glory years, and you feel like
Right.
this is like that's why I'm a fan of this team.
Or
Let
you
me
played
just
for them for a couple of years, and
You're
so you
right,
have
or
some
you
loyalty
played
there.
exactly. How about with this whole name change, it opens you up to a different name, a different brand that's seen in a more positive light. Maybe Sports Center, maybe ESPN will quit showing teams scoring on us all the fucking time, and then like everybody's highlight got the Redskins on it. So it's like
Right.
but maybe that opens you up to a new and younger, invigorated fan base.
Right.
Who then says, "Oh my God!" Because nowadays, let's be honest, kids nowadays, they didn't give a damn about the Warriors or who they had on their team. All they cared about was the colors. They were like, "Oh shit, blue, yellow. That's a pretty nice uniform combination." I know people who are Oregon Ducks fans because of the damn uniforms.
Yep.
I used to want to go there because of the uniforms.
Because of the uniforms.
That's what I'm saying.
Really?
So you open yourself up to a whole new
their
colorway
uniforms
and
is
a
vicious.
whole new generation of fans just from a colorway.
Well, there is that.
I just don't think that. I mean, the type of person I am, Alex knows me best. I don't care about any of that. I don't see colors, and I don't see fat. I don't see any of that.
If Steve had his way, he'd wear like the same white T-shirt to everything.
I do wear the same shirts every day.
Dude, we the same on that. I could care less about what I wear. I'll play in the fucking parking lot with two letters drawn on my chest in permanent marker. I don't care, but nowadays the younger fan base, and that's how you get them.
I think there is a definite dividing line. Whereas I actually look at Oregon as like chaotic, and I can't stand what they do with their uniforms. I understand certain younger generations now love it, where they change their uniform every 10 minutes. Like they come out at halftime with a new shirt on. I don't know what they're doing.
It's reflective.
Oregon set the trend with that one.
Yeah, they really well.
I think it was like
Nike sent it
with
Oregon. Yeah. That was Nike because Nike's founder was from Oregon.
It was an Oregon grad. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that makes sense.
So that's how that happened. But
I do have some news here on this. This is courtesy of Mark Tyler from Hogs Haven, sent this to me, asking me to look into this just like 10 minutes before we went to air. So there are some already filed trademarks out there.
Right.
Washington Veterans has been trademarked all the way back in 2014. By, oddly enough, a company called Washington Warriors LLC, which appears to not be in operation anymore, again, based on literally 5 minutes of research of mine. Washington Americans is trademarked. That's been another name that's thrown out. That's also a terrible name. The Washington Red Tails was somebody filed for that name back in February of this year, 2 individuals. Just my guess, looking at who they are and what they've done, they look like IP squatters to me.
There's been a ton of IP squatting going on.
Yeah, which for those of you who aren't familiar, people do this all the time. Yep. You try to predict kind of where the market is going, and you're going to go trademark a name, like if like Taylor Swift's about to file a website, you'll go trademark Taylor Swift. I'm making
I actually went to college with the guy who bought NewYorkNewYork.com back in the early days of the internet, and he made a fortune.
Well, there's whole IP law firms that do this. That's how they make their money. And then so Washington Warriors is also trademarked.
Yep.
All the way back in 2014. So now they can be sold, they can be transferred, money talks. None of that should really matter. You just drive a Brinks truck up to these people and
right. The question is, what are they asking for it? Like, because from what I've read,
I think Braves.
I didn't look up Braves. I didn't look that up. I don't know.
Well, and this is where I wish we did almost know an intellectual property lawyer. With Warriors, you already have a Warriors in the NBA, and same with Braves. You already have a Braves in Major League Baseball. How do those trademarks cross leagues? And
I can talk this a little bit. Again, I'm not a licensed IP lawyer, but the trademarks are very limited. Okay, you have to write it's a big long application you fill out, and the scope of the use is defined very clearly in that. And so you could have a Golden State Warriors team that's that's in plays basketball, and you could also have a Washington Warriors team by just defining the scope of the use of the mark separately. Now, from a marketing perspective, that might not be a thing to do. That's something that the marketing
that's another top part of the discussion. But
you could limit the scope of the marks to keep them separate.
Right. So, I mean, those are some of the more popular names. Red Tails, I think, first came about 10 years ago. Somebody suggested that. It was one of the DC Council members said that. I remember hearing Washington Americans was suggested by the head of the Native American Indian Museum. But it sounds like somebody trademarked that too. So it's just...
One of you brought up right before the show, was it you, Alex, or Jamal, that it was Jamal, that the Globetrotters were offered to sell the Washington Generals label.
Yeah. And it's they did. It's funny though, because I've been reading. I actually tweeted that before the show started too, and I was just reading the comments, and so many people. I really on its surface, I don't have an issue with the name. Like Generals is fine. You can do so many different colorways with it. There's plenty of different schemes that you can do. You don't have to do anything that the Harlem Globetrotters did in terms of their color schemes. It's entirely different. All you're doing is paying for the name.
Yeah, you wouldn't really want that green and gold color scheme anyway. Someone's got that.
But if they cannot stray away from burgundy and gold, they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose so many people if they do that.
I agree. I think that they kind of got to stay with that look that Maybe you go retro. You mentioned the spear helmet at one point. And
then Rob, you can incorporate those helmets, the throwback helmets that the league does not want them to wear for some reason. So
So what somebody did mention before, and I don't have their name because I rarely pay attention to it when I listen to these radio shows. But somebody mentioned on a radio show, either what's today, Saturday, either Thursday or Wednesday. If we're going to stay in that realm of our color scheme, and if we still want to honor the Native Americans and to some degree, think about be more specific in terms of who we want to, or not who, but the representation. And they said look into the 500 tribes and try and get down to a name that we can show some respect to. Now I have I know four tribes off the top of my head, so I can't tell you all 500, but there's plenty of ways where we can try and honor them, but it will just take some research on their behalf. There's research for them.
There's precedent for that. The Florida State Seminoles use the name Seminoles because they have a relationship with the Seminole tribe. The Seminole tribe, they probably have a written agreement with the Seminoles.
It's a written agreement and financial agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And the Seminoles have publicly come out. The Seminole tribe has publicly come out and supported them. So that would be a way to go. Yeah. But personally,
their mascot is a real Indian. He's a real Native American person.
So you could the team could go that way. By the way, I'm the one that wrote the piece in defense of the name on the website. I still believe that way. And I actually, Alex, did peruse through the comments a little bit on that article to see what the yutzes in the comment section are saying. And so for people who are asking, I don't know how I will feel if the name changes. I can't sit here and conclusively say I'm going to abandon the team and all that, but I also really can't say it's going to keep me interested because, I'm one of the people that's not a DC native. I did live in DC for a while. I've lived all around the world. The connection to me truly sort of is Redskins, and it may make me feel differently, so I can't say conclusively that I'm going to still support the team in the same way. Just because I don't live there, and it's kind of, if it's a different team from my youth, it may make me feel differently. We'll just have to see. So
I think that's why they'll try and probably keep the burgundy and gold. If you read the tea leaves in the release that the team put out, they kind of indicated they want to keep as much as possible.
Yeah.
Here's where I would go, and I don't know enough about the history of this to know, but let's take some long-term planning here. If the team stays in Maryland. First of all, I've said on the show many times, I think a stadium in D.C. is very unlikely. So I'm going to assume that doesn't happen. If the stadium is in Maryland, why not research some local Native American tribes and reach an agreement, much like Florida State did with the Seminoles, to honor some. Yeah.
Well, let me give you the perfect tribe because it's the most obvious name of any Native American name in the D.C. area, and that's Potomac. That's a Native American tribe.
Really?
Yeah, they're northwest of here on the Potomac River. They technically spell it now with a PAWC something. Like there's like 4 extra letters in their name, and we just kind of shortened it to Potomac. But
the
there you
Washington
go.
Potomac doesn't really flow off the tongue, though.
But I'm just saying, hey, compared to some of the other tribe names around here, they're awful.
Look, Alice gave it a shot. Look, it's nothing. You gotta try. I understand, but yeah, we just it's ways to find a name, and it's just more so digging into all the tribes in the area. I got you.
Yeah. No, I think that you're right, Jamal. And we had a little technical difficulty there, folks. Jamal's mic does that sometimes. Sorry about that.
It's always at the 40-minute mark.
Yeah. Something about those mics, man. 40 minutes in. And I know I'm the one who recommended that mic. That was a mistake.
But I mean, but if the stadium gets built in Virginia, maybe find some local Virginia, a tribe that's willing to. That would be. It seems to me the most obvious thing. I don't know. Some of these other names, I don't know.
The problem is a lot of the cool Native American names that I think flow, like Mohawk. That's not around here. Like that's up in New York.
Well, Mohawk also I think hairstyle. I think bad hairstyle.
Where do you think the hairstyle came from?
I agree, but I don't want to be named after a bad haircut.
Fine. Yeah, I think Warriors is what it's going to end up being. Somebody reported that's what they're talking about internally wanting to go to.
Yeah, it just flows. And again, I still think Braves is in the mix. I mean,
Braves is fine. I like Braves.
But wait a minute, hold on, because I hear you, and I would maybe get behind that, especially since it was the original name of the team. But that's still a reference to Native American culture, and I think the same group of people who hate the Redskins the most are going to hate Braves for the same reason, aren't they? I think so. No, you're shaking your head.
I can't tell you what offends Native American people, but even what was it? There are other teams in other leagues that are the Braves that don't face that kind of scrutiny.
Well, the Atlanta Braves got in huge trouble over Chief Wahoo, but that was a
no, that was the Indians.
That was the logo and the character.
Yeah.
So
the Braves had that other guy.
But Braves, and you throw the spear on the helmet, you're not offending.
Yeah, just make them look like they did in 2002. I'm sure you've seen pictures of those, the 02 throwbacks with the gold pants.
Just do it that way.
It was a great look. It looked badass.
I liked it. I was pissed that I never got a chance to wear it.
Yeah, I actually remember
that jersey.
there was a period of time when you were there where they were talking about somebody was talking about doing that as a black uniform, which I thought would have. I'm not a fan of black uniforms, but it would have looked good.
I think it would have gave it a Florida State kind of look.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I can say is. Yeah, I'm not too wound up over covers, but Rob said it right. I mean, for people like me who are against the name change anyway, you have to keep some historical base to the team, or you're going to lose me and people like me quickly. You're going to lose me in particular. If you change the colors to green and pink or whatever the color is, that'd be awful. But I mean, pick another color scheme, and if you just say, "Listen, we're going to start over," you're gonna lose me. Then
it's going to be red, white, and blue if they change it. It's just going to be something American flag uniform, and that'll be it.
No, I'm not going to lie to you. I did, based on what Steve just said, I do wonder. Like, my own concern is what happens if they completely change the colors? In my mind, I'm concerned because it's am I going to have any association with this team? I understand that they're from DC. And it was easy for me to when the XFL came back, it was easy for me to turn to the Renegades and have some sort of sentiment because they were from DC. But just having
Defenders were DC, Renegades were Dallas.
Oh, where was DC?
I'm nerdy enough where I know that. Defenders.
Isn't it Defenders?
Defenders. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I don't know why Renegades in my head, but anyway, the Defenders. So when I had some ties to them, I was cool with watching them. But with the Redskins, this is the NFL. This is something I watch on a weekly basis. This is my team. So when you change the color scheme completely, and it's not even in the burgundy and gold realm, I'm nervous. I'm nervous that he may be thinking about it, and he may consider it. And I don't know how I'm gonna react if I see that, and this is the team that they put out there.
Yeah, I think you got to keep it.
They're gonna keep it. They're gonna keep it. I mean, that's like the Packers not being green and gold.
Frankly, we could take
they would lose everything if they did that. So
we could take a old picture of Rob with like what he was wearing back then, and you just maybe wipe out whatever's on the jersey where it says Redskins and put the new name, and it'll be the same. That's my guess.
So the only thing off the top of my head that I can think of is the Oilers going to the Titans, because I was trying to think.
But
now
they still kept the colorway,
and that's where I was getting at. Yep, that's exactly where I was getting at, because I didn't know until like a couple of days ago that they were in Tennessee for 2 years as the Oilers.
Yep.
So when they changed the name, they still had. Yeah,
Memphis. They were in Memphis. Did you know that, Jamal?
I did. I actually found out through Twitter, because there was plenty of people berating people who didn't know. So I found out by just reading the comments.
Also, the Oilers have a obvious connection to Texas. Yeah. Right. Because it's oil, and it doesn't really fit with Nashville or
there's not a lot of oil in it. Coal, maybe they could have changed to like the Kohlers or something. I don't know.
But if the team is staying in DC, you truly are going to lose a huge segment of the fan base. People like me, probably who are an older generation, 10 years older than you, Alex, are not going to go for it. And again, I'm connected not because of the city. I'm connected because of the team. So I don't have that geographical rooting interest. And there's a lot of people like me out there. So of all these things you guys have been kicking around, Braves is the one that would, I think, I guess I'd be in favor of the most. It keeps an historical connection to the team. It would keep me interested. It relates back to what the team used to be. That would keep me. If you do that, Dan Snyder, if you're listening, and I know you guys listen at least occasionally because you've called me and yelled at me over things we said once or twice, that would keep me interested, and that would keep me a fan of the team, Braves. I'm all for Braves.
Right. You can also just say Braves. Things Alex has said, because I'm sure it's stuff I've said that's probably.
No, actually, what it was is we interviewed one of their players and didn't tell him.
Right.
They yelled at me over. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, we should really move on. We do have one topic we have to get to. I think we're going to be talking about this for a while now. So. I want to get to our final thing, and that's our position group breakdown. This week, we are just going to cover the defensive tackles, so a smaller group, so hopefully we can get through some of these guys quickly. And, it's probably the strength of this defense, it's definitely the strength of this defense now, and has been for the last few years, is the big three guys up front, John Allen, Matt Inez, and Deron Payne. I think we'll start there. Let's start with Matt Ioannidis, and I'm starting with him. Rob, you don't know this. I'm a Temple grad, so I always favor any guy who went to Temple. And so Steve likes to make fun of the fact that I'm such a big Matt Ioannidis fan anyway.
No, I just said that you have a romantic
relationship with him. Yes. He thinks we live together or something.
But who's the other? We have another Temple guy now, though. We've got
Isaiah Wright, the receiver. Yeah,
so you're gonna have to make a decision between Matt and Isaiah.
We'll see what happens with Isaiah Wright.
You're gonna have a triangle.
All right, but let's start there because not only because I think I have that weird Temple thing with him, but I legitimately think he might be the best player on this defensive line. So that's why I want to start with him. So if you guys could give me... Oh, right, Steve, you just texted me. We do also have a poll we have to get to. Let's talk about Matt Ioannidis, then we'll get to the poll.
All right. My view on Matt Ioannidis is that I think he's the most proven and accomplished defensive tackle on the team. I don't care about his draft set. Yeah, what was he? 5th-round draft pick, I think? 4th, 5th-round draft pick?
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? The fact of the matter is, he's developed and performed the best out of all these guys. That's not to say that it's going to stay that way. That's not to say Allen and Payne couldn't become all pros someday. But right now, I think Matt Ioannidis is number one, and he needs to be a starter. That's what I think of Matt Ioannidis. Thoughts?
Yeah.
You can go ahead. Go ahead, Mom.
I was just going to say, it's hard because I understand where Steve is coming from, and I'm not disagreeing. I just feel like with this rotation, like somebody this year and even maybe next year, it's hard to just quantify somebody as a starter because somebody's snaps is going to get taken. I think the best production that we've seen from Ioannidis is when he didn't have the most snaps. He was very productive on essentially, or his motor was high, and he was very productive on essentially every snap that he was in the game. And like obviously, I think he was our most effective pass rusher. In terms of we're talking about the defensive line here. I think he was our most effective pass rusher. But what happens if you give him more snaps? Like, is he going to wear it down? Is he not going to be as effective? That's something that pops into my mind. But that's also the same question that you can ask for any other. So I guess I'm giving you a neutral answer, but you can pretty much ask the same question for the other defensive linemen. But he was very effective when he didn't have the most amount of snaps or average snaps for a starter.
Mehdi I is a beast. I respect every single thing that he's done. He brings life to the term, get it out the mud, because he literally came in as a late round pick and exceeded everybody's draft expectations and draft predictions and all that. Because when he got drafted, I was like, okay, rotation, maybe, whatever.
Right.
But he's proven himself. With saying that, though, I'm going to say that Allen and Payne gives you the better dynamic in the middle from a standpoint of, I just think they work better together. If they would work better together, I think they have a certain connection that obviously the Bama thing too. They could play off of each other. There's nothing that Ioannidis can do that I don't think Jonathan Allen can do. And I think Jonathan Allen's ceiling is definitely higher. But if we talk about production, Steve is right, is that Ioannidis has produced the most. But just look at body types, though. You got a bigger guy in Payne, and you got a big guy in Allen. Like he's not Payne size, but look at the power and the speed, the speed that comes from that middle. And
Rob, let me ask you this though. Let me ask you this. We're switching to a 4-3, obviously from a 3-4. Let's pretend we're in the base defense. So these defensive tackles going to be more inside. I assume 3-tech, right? As opposed to more outside, maybe 5-tech, in the 3-4. So what's the difference in terms of how the lineman needs to play, what their skills and talents need to be to play a 3-tech versus a 5-tech, and who fits that better?
You're going to get doubled. You're going to get doubled a lot.
So bigger then.
Yeah. You need size. So to me, that puts Payne already in there. Like he's used to double teams. He can deal with it. You're gonna get doubled a lot, and honestly, you if you play it right, you clear things up on so many blitzes on run plays. Let's say it's a simple stretch play. They're gonna double, move up to the linebacker. Well, Payne gives you that option where he has the ability to split double teams as well as keep guys off his linebackers. We used to say keep the backer clean, and those guys can run and make plays. He did it at a 1 technique. We saw him do it in the 1 technique. So he's definitely going to be the 3 technique. And they, like I said, those guys get doubled a lot more. And then that leaves you one-on-one with Allen, and I'll take Allen versus any guard in the league, honestly, one-on-one.
So size-wise, what we're talking about here is Allen's listed at 6'3", 286. Payne is listed. Ioannidis is listed at 6'3", 308, and then Payne is listed at 6'2", 308. So he's a bit shorter and a bit bulkier. So you got Allen, who's about 20 pounds lighter than these other guys. That's the bottom line from a size perspective.
It's one thing to look at weight, but you also have to look at I noticed this first when Allen came in. It's not just weight; it's like their width and how much space they kind of just take up in that respect too. Because you look at some of these guys and they're just wide bodies. It doesn't 280 versus 300 doesn't matter if your shoulders are an extra 6 inches out, right?
I mean, the guy who's the bulkiest out of all these is Tim Settle.
Sure.
I don't know. My concern about Settle's always been, is he really kind of a true nose tackle? And so then does he really fit in a 4-3 as a defensive tackle? But when I watch his film, and I'm an amateur at it, but I did a film study on him, he's pretty damn versatile, I think. Tim Settle. Tim Settle's a guy who, Tim Settle can really play anywhere. And I think on a different team, he would be a starter. So Settle is a guy who I think is a quality rotational player.
His problem is motor.
Yeah.
He picks and chooses what he wants to play. So that would be my only knock on him. He definitely has a talent. But I think Allen has a better pass rush set of moves than Ioannidis. I
Ioannidis
think
just bull rushes everybody.
yeah,
That's
he
his
just
go-to.
runs you over, in which we
Yeah.
have a guy like that in Kerrigan, and now people are turning on Kerrigan because of that. So,
Well, Kerrigan, I think they're turning on Kerrigan
because
because he's 30. I think it's the classic. Oh, you hit 30, we don't like you anymore.
It's
thing.
the death sentence, right?
Right.
Wait, how old is Kerrigan now?
Kerrigan's what, 31?
Hold
31,
on,
32,
I got it. This is why I have my
myself.
chart.
I know.
I know he's a couple years behind me.
Yeah.
This is why I have my huge spreadsheet. So Kerrigan was born in 1988, August 1988. So he is about to be 32.
Yeah, Steve loves Excel. He has everything in spreadsheet.
Oh, I wish I could publish this whole chart for you guys, but I mean, it's crazy.
So I did mention this. We forgot to get to the poll.
Okay,
so Steve, why don't you read the poll real quick? Because it really has to do with the starting rotation at defensive tackle.
Okay. So this week's poll, which we always do a poll every week, the poll question was, with the Redskins switching to a base 4-3 defense, they now have an abundance of starting quality defensive tackles. Who do you think will start at defensive tackle in 2020? Now, because of Twitter limitations, there just wasn't enough options to throw guys like Tim Settle in, like that. So our options were John Allen, Deron Payne as one group, Allen and Ioannidis, or Allen and Payne, or Ioannidis and Payne. Those are your three options. So as we do every week here, we're going to try and predict what the fans think and then what we think. So let's start with Jamal this week. Jamal, give us your opinion.
Say the options.
Okay. Options are John Allen, Deron Payne is one, Allen and Ioannidis is another, and then Ioannidis and Payne. Those are three options. I should have put other, but I didn't think about it.
Oh my goodness. I usually don't go first.
I'll go first.
Well, I'll tell you what, let Alex go then.
I gotta give me some time to think of this one.
Well, and Rob already kind of gave us what he
thinks.
Just
a prediction, yeah.
Yeah. But all right, so I'll go. So for me, I'm gonna say obviously my homer thing is gonna be Ioannidis and Payne. I think that gives you a good 1-2 as your starter.
Household Alex by
yes, of course. And in terms of the fans, I'm gonna just say they go with the 2 first-round picks, Payne and Allen.
Okay.
Because I think that's how fans think.
All right, since Jamal can't think on his feet, let's go to Rob next. Give Jamal another minute to.
Payne Allen.
And fans too? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Payne and Allen. I think that's my choice, and I think that's the fans' choice. It's kind of hard to stray away from those two. I just leave it at that. They're the 2 first-round picks, and they're pretty good. So,
by the way, I wouldn't knock any of them. I wouldn't
knock them. It's hard to.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
I wonder how much contract will factor into this.
Oh, it always does.
It has to. It's been my position from the beginning of the show is you can look at these contracts and figure out 90% of who's going to start just based on who's getting paid the most money normally. The fans picked the obvious, which is John Allen, Deron Payne, by a vote of 54%. The second place vote was Ioannidis and Payne. And then bringing up the rear was Allen and Ioannidis. And again, I should have put an other option in there, but frankly, I just didn't. Sorry. Okay, we didn't get a ton of comments this week for obvious reasons. It was all about the name change this week. But we do have a few. Let's go with – okay, here's the most honest comment. And plus, this is a woman who wrote this, and we always got to read the comments from the women. This is somebody who goes by the West Point Ramp, who says, does it matter? Any combination involving those three will absolutely fill the middle and draw double teams. Running up the middle will not be an option for opposing defenses. They win games in the trenches. That's the most true and honest comment you could get there. Here's another one that's a pretty good comment. Elmer Wells writes, Allen is a defensive tackle in a 4-3 scheme. Granted, in situational football where they may play 3-4 package, that's certainly a possibility, but he plays in from time to time. But Sweat, Chase, and Kerrigan are your main defensive ends. Alex, this is you went on the Urban Sports Scene show, didn't you? About a year ago. Remember that?
2 or 3 years ago.
One of those guys wrote in, and Wool USS wrote in and said the fans are so off. Ioannidis should be the guaranteed starter. That was his opinion. That's kind of a sample of it. Again, we didn't get too many comments. There's a few more, but but that's all we go. If it were me, I would have voted for Ioannidis and Payne. If I had voted, because like we all agreed, Deron Payne is just a beast. No doubt a beast. And I think Ioannidis is more proven than John Allen. I love John Allen, but I think Ioannidis has proved himself. That having been said, the true answer is it's going to be a rotation. That's the obvious answer. It'll be a rotation. Everybody's going to get their time, and it almost sort of doesn't matter who you ride on some chart. That's the truth of the matter, I think.
Well, it does matter from a contract perspective. If Ioannidis is trying to get paid, it matters. Let's believe the team is going to hold that against him. So,
okay, let's talk
year
about
two
that
of that.
fast.
I think of his.
Yeah, okay.
He got paid, but it wasn't a big contract, right?
Ioannidis' contract runs through 2022.
It's not.
It was a $21.75 million contract.
Right.
His base salary this year is $4.2 million. His cap hit is $6 million because of the guaranteed money. If you play that out, next year $7 million cap hit, and then 2022 goes up to $8.25 million. So that is a lot of money. That's a lot of money to put on the bench. However, John Allen's cap hit is $10 million.
Right. He's in the last year of a rookie contract.
But you got the 5th-year option on him, and you're going to make a shit ton of money on that 5th-year option.
Well, yeah, and that's the $10 million is the option.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then Deron Payne is in the 3rd year of his rookie contract, so he's got almost a $3.9 million cap hit. So they're going to have to make a decision what to do about Deron Payne here too, at the end of the year. It is no option. They're going to take it. They ought to re-sign him, but they could just exercise their 5th-year option if they want. But if the team is smart, they just offer him a full value 4-year deal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that the tricky part is long term. You're not going to be able to keep all three. Eventually, one of them is going to have to go.
That's what I've been saying. That's why I've said it from the beginning. So, do you actually let John Allen go in favor of Matt Ioannidis? That's the real question.
But there's going to be some people around the team with high cap numbers that you'll be able to get off your books eventually. I know for a fact we talked about Kerrigan for a long time because he was making a lot of money. You was going to worry about do you need to cut him now or can you wait till the end of the season? But either way, you're going to free up some cap space with Kerrigan, unless you decide to re-sign him and restructure it. But that's something that's an option too. So it's these are things that you can. There's other options where you can, if you wanted to, you can keep these people on the defensive line because that's the strength of your team. Or trade them and do the Niners option and get you a 1st-round pick for somebody.
Exactly, that's exactly where I was going. After this year, you see how it works this year, and then let's just say the boat ain't big enough for everybody. Well, you got Matty I on a very, very team favorable contract.
Yeah.
For the production that he's had, and that's obviously a good trade asset, and I'm sure teams will come running and come asking about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. They're pretty young, so you can't miss.
Kerrigan's off the books. My thing with Kerrigan was I don't know. You can't cut him though. You can't cut him. You cannot cut Kerrigan.
Well, they're not going to do that. He's one of the faces of the team.
Yeah,
he's a favorite of the owner. Ryan Kerrigan. For those of you, we'll talk about him next week. But
now Ron loves him too. Ron loves him too.
Oh, really? There you
go. I'm sure
Kerrigan
he's a good locker room guy. He's always struck everybody publicly as a good personality.
Well, he's an Iron Man. He's involved in the community.
Yeah.
He's always out there. Ryan Kerrigan is not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be. I feel like with Rivera in here, guys who provide leadership and are good locker room guys is going to matter quite a lot. Ron Rivera strikes.
I think we could see. I think it's possible we could see Kerrigan walk away from the game a little earlier than we thought.
You think so? I mean, he's getting up there.
I could see this or maybe next year being Ryan's last year.
Yeah, I don't want to jump to not make jump to conclusions, but make false connections. But I say I agree with Rob. But I also add that the injuries that he had, I think was it last year. Yeah. Or was it, last year can probably be a contributing factor because he doesn't get hurt, but he got hurt twice in the last year, which is kind of significant because I think one was his Achilles, and then he had a concussion. And that's like something that we never seen from Kerrigan before. And he's pushing that range, that age range, where it's like those injuries may start to pile up. So I'm not saying it will, but like he's pushing that range. So
he's made a lot of money, and he's going to be a favorite here as long as he decides to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at some point, I think just given his outside interest and the type of person he is, he doesn't need the game. Like,
interesting.
So,
well, one point I think to remember about Kerrigan is that, let's see, he's in year. Okay, he's a 2011 grad, so this year would be season 10.
Yeah.
Right, to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, so this year season 10. Yeah, and so that, if I recall, unless the CBA has changed that is a marker on the pension benefit, is to get to year 10. And so he could, I don't know if he gets any future benefits from sticking around longer. So if he's got to get through this year to hit that, but after that, he could retire early and kind of move on. He's very well spoken. I can see him going into TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no reason for him to. There's no reason for him to keep playing beyond year 10 from a pension and retirement standpoint. So you'd be like, I think Jason Witten's a fool for playing football again when he had a TV gig, lined up. That's just asinine. Right.
But here's the thing, though, with guys like Witten, he's gonna have that when he walks away anyway. Like he can come back to that. He's just putting it down.
I'd like to ask everybody, but we've forgotten a couple people. Kayla Brantley is the other obvious name in here.
I like Caleb.
Talk to us about Caleb then. Yeah.
Well, I think he has a good conversion, like a power conversion, just from a standpoint of he can convert from being a power rusher to he has just enough speed to get around guys and be disruptive. A great rotation guy. Let's say a team is driving. You got fucking Zach Martin or somebody out there, and he's going against Payne, Allen, or whoever they lined up against him, and then you can throw in Caleb Brantley. He can probably get a play.
I mean, the team obviously likes him, because they keep bringing him back. Ron Rivera brought him back again. He's on the min value team friendly contract, so he's he's a guy I think that could could come around and be a rotation player. I like Caleb Brantley.
I think so too. I think it's good depth. I look at the 5 guys we have at defensive tackle. I see them all making this roster. Like they're all we're gonna need 5. So
but who is literally the international man of mystery here is David Bata. Remember David Bata? No, you don't. David Bata was signed this year as a rookie he's a German. He was signed through the NFL's international program, and the name of it is escaping me. I have tried to find information on him. Can't find anything on David Bata at all, but he came from the German professional football program. I'm rooting for him because I don't even know what he looks like,
Sure.
No idea about him whatsoever. So I'm rooting for David Bata.
I think that kind of covers everybody. We've talked about all of them at some point.
The other guy is, I think, Jordan Brailsford, probably more of an end, but
I think he's an end.
But he was at Oklahoma State. They moved him all around, all over, everywhere. So
he's definitely a speed rusher. I like his size. I like his measurables. I think he lacks a little bit on like the arm length that you like from a speed rusher. So I think that could be the reason why they moved him around a lot. But he's interesting. He'll be an interesting prospect to watch.
Well, but I assume body type wise, he looks like he's very much a defensive end in the NFL. Yeah. I know, in college.
What is he? I think he's like 6'5", 6'4", 6'5".
He is listed at. Oh, I'm on the wrong column here. Jordan Brailsford listed at 6'3", 250. So he's definitely an end then.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what your playing weight was, and you were a linebacker, right? I mean, weren't you about 250? You weren't 250?
I would have got my ass cut.
I always looked at you and thought you were like one of those bigger linebackers.
I guess I just wore it well. But I was my rookie year I was 235. I had to get
you were only 235?
When I came out, I was 245.
Oh, okay.
All the weightlifting and muscle, and I got down to 235, and then.
Okay, so you came out almost at 250 though.
Yeah, So when we went to a 3-4, then I had to bulk up again and get up. I got up to 245, and that was my playing weight. So
Gotcha.
you're not too far off, but if I was 250, I would have got fined a cut.
Okay.
Well, to wrap this up here, because I know Alex, we're over time again.
Yeah, we are.
Right? We're always over time. Yeah. So, in terms of what we think the final defensive tackle position group is, that's not a lot of mystery to me. Obviously, this year it's Alan Payne, Ioannidis, Brailford, and Tim Settle. I think all those guys, or Brantley rather, not Brailford. I think all those guys make the team in some capacity. They could put Brantley on the practice squad again, I suppose, for a numbers thing. But to me, there's no mystery about the defensive tackle group.
He will not survive that practice squad.
You think someone snatches him?
Yeah, somebody takes him.
I think you might be right. But then again, it's funny to think about that. Matt Ioannidis sat on the practice squad his rookie year, and nobody snatched him up. And I bet you some GMs kick themselves for stuff like that.
Probably.
Right.
Yeah, but I think you're right, Steve. All five of these guys are worthy of making the roster.
Right.
It's going to be the strength of this team. You're going to have to find creative ways to use them all. I could see certain fronts where you have four of these guys out instead of defensive ends to try and stop the run. Things like that. So it'll be interesting.
How much time do we got? I want to be quick with this question.
The radio station isn't going to cut us off, Jamal, so go ahead.
Look, all right, so here's the one concern that I did have with this group, because we are named, and I 100% agree this is the strength of the defense and probably the strength of the team. But last year, 2019, you can date it back to 2017 when Jonathan Allen first got here. This defensive line was still getting gashed in the run game. And these are the same players that were on the roster over this period of time. So I'm just asking you all, what are y'all opinions? We understand it's the strength of the team, but do we want to be so, focused on that part while ignoring the fact that this may be a defensive line that has some flaws, and it may be in the run game aspect?
Rob is chomping to respond to this.
Nope, because listen, just from the standpoint of, now, I thought Payne's rookie year, I thought he was adjusting to the game, obviously, and the speed of the game. I thought he played the first snap hard, took the second one off. Like, he was every other snap type of player because he's just trying to adjust to the speed of the game. But after he started getting his feet under him or whatever, I think that he established himself, and we cannot put that on them because – tell me who was the linebacker core those years.
It was Mason and who?
Well,
Will,
Zach Brown,
Zach Brown,
honestly,
and Mason.
Undisciplined, was never in the right gap. People loved him because he shot gaps to make plays, and he was never in the right place. Who was that safety? Clint Dix.
Yeah,
who couldn't come down in the run game. Okay, so we were getting gashed, but you cannot blame those guys. You can't blame those guys. Everybody fits into the run scheme.
So, Rob, when you were watching the last couple of years, did you see it right away that it was a scheme thing? Because I always assume it is.
Yeah, especially with Ha-Ha. I knew it would take him a whole season. People were like, "Oh, we got him." I'm like, just give him time, because right now he's playing off pure instincts. And then when you look at Zach Brown, I knew about Zach right away. I knew about Zach from a guy that played in Buffalo with him. I won't throw his name out.
Okay.
He played in Buffalo. You probably put two and two together, but whatever. But
not hard for a hardcore fan now.
And that's why when he told me about Zach, he told me about Zach's contract situation, and he told me Zach is a great player from a standpoint of he can diagnose and hit those gaps, but he often guesses and he wildcats. So he was like, it's going to be hit or miss.
There's a reason why a linebacker runs a 4.4 isn't here anymore.
Yeah,
he
always struck me as a perfect.
He's on the outs in Philly too when he went to Philly. So it's a scheme thing. It's a player fit thing. And you look at Mason Foster, who I liked Mason's game. I thought he was a very sure tackler.
Smart guy too. I remember talking to him.
He did not have the foot speed to make plays, and that's the truth about it. People can say what they want to me about it. He didn't have the foot speed to make plays.
I always feel like, and maybe you could speak to this another time, Rob, because we are over time, but I always feel like we never quite figured out the interior of that 3-4. The nose tackle and the 2 inside linebackers, and those are key to making it work. I'm glad we're going back to a 4-3 because I think it's easier. And I don't know if you could speak to that as well because you've played both.
It's definitely easier, and I don't want Ryan Kerrigan in coverage.
No,
I don't want Sweat in coverage. Let those guys do what they do best and get after the passer. They don't have to think 2 or 3 times. Oh, if the back swings out, then I got to be swing deep in number 3. I got to be between 1 and 2. Like, no. Okay,
no,
go get
that's your job. You're a linebacker.
Well,
you figure out the running back.
The coaching staff is committing roster malpractice by putting Ryan Kerrigan in coverage all these years.
Right.
He's always been a 4-3 defensive end, shoehorned into the wrong position.
And he never got that opportunity.
Right.
Oh, that reminds me. Just real quick, I'll throw this out there, and if there is a season, you'll see it. There's a pass rush package where obviously where the guys will be flipped, but it's wide. So your D tackle will be in a 5 technique, and I can't. I was told about it, but I can't. It's hard to without drawing it on the damn board. But it's just basically like just wide nines,
like wide 9,
2 wide 9s and a 5 tech.
Exactly.
So is there a nose then, or are both DTs out at the?
No, what you got is you got linebackers, what we call in hawk position, which is you're 2 to 3 yards away from the ball. You're not hugging the line of scrimmage like that.
Okay.
Like you're not walked up on it in the position, but you're in a hawk position where you're like 2 or 3 yards away from it. And it's just to create confusion. And outside, it's a nickel package. So outside, then you have a nickel corner walking up outside of.
So it's just a shit ton of edge pressure. It sounds like
exactly, and it's
gotcha.
I was like, damn, JDR doing it like that, and he was like, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm excited to see what he come up with. Just from a combination standpoint. That's it. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I think that's gonna be the nice thing about having you on the show. We can actually get into some of that weird nitty gritty stuff that Steve and Jamal played in high school.
I got a dry race board, huh?
Yeah.
We have to start doing a video version of this show.
Yeah. But having somebody who actually
the bandwidth for that
played, it's going to be fun to be able to get some of that detail back in here. So we should wrap it up because we're way over time.
Alex, so you can't. Me as a bad high school defensive back cannot compare to.
No, and Jamal, I know you were wide out, right, Jamal? So same thing.
But not on that level.
No. But we can get some real X's and O's discussion back in this show, which will be fun. Want to thank you for joining us, Rob. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jamal. By the way, guys, happy 4th of July. I don't think our show is interrupted by anyone blowing anything up, so that's good.
We just got ribs on the way.
Me too. You and I will do some ribs comparisons, Jamal. Yeah.
Everybody be safe, man.
Yeah, be safe. Happy 4th, and we'll see you next time on the show. Later.
Right.
Okay.